Good morning and welcome to the Region of Queens Municipality Council's regular meeting, Tuesday, May 14th. It is 9 a.m. and I would like to call the meeting to order. There are several changes to the agenda and I'm going to go through them now. Just one moment, please. Okay, so there are several changes or approval to the agenda. I have a question asked of council. Under discussion, there's 8.3, waiver to operational policy 58, privateers farmers market. This is something we regularly do, and I'm asking if council is okay if that moves to recommendation, because it is as a recommendation. Is there anyone? Okay, so there's now a 7.4 waiver to operational policy 58 and the community investment fund 8.4, which has been thoroughly flushed by council. Generally those go to recommendation as well. Is there any objection if we move that to 8? Okay, so 7.3, and then there's 7.4, 7.5 community investment fund. And in camera, CAO Jodry has asked for 3 additionals. 9.4 will be acquisition, sale, lease, and security of municipal property. And I will repeat that. 9.4, acquisition, sale, lease, and security of municipal property. 9.5, contract negotiations, and 9.6, labor negotiations. So I would now ask for a motion to approve the agenda, moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Gidney. Any other changes? If not, I will ask for the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. There are no presentations before us today. Are there any petitions to table? Seeing none. Public question comment session. There's anyone attending as a guest who wishes to address council, please just put your hand up and address yourself with your name and the community in which you live, and you would have 5 minutes. Is there anyone who has any questions or wishes to address council? Seeing none. Approval of the minutes. Regular council, April 23rd, 2024. Please note under 8.2, Councillor Gidney second the motion made by Councillor Charlton to table the motion. So just adjust that in your draft minutes. 8.2, Councillor Gidney seconded the motion to table. An adjustment to those draft minutes. And then I'll ask for approval of those minutes. 6.1. Moved by Councillor Charlton, seconded by Councillor Amaro. Are there any questions? If not, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Yes. And apologize for failing to recognize that Councillor Muse has sent his regrets. So regrets from Councillor Muse. Recommendation 7.1, tax exemption. There is a recommendation to receive the report, moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Gidney, that we receive the report. And for those in our viewing audience, the report deals with the changing in the base amounts for exemption. They're based on 3 sections. Every section has gone up to $5,000. So the three groupings are now 25,000 and under, 30,000 to $25,001, and 35,000 to $30,001. The exception amounts remain the same: 400, 350, and 300. Any other questions on the report? Any questions on the report? If not, I'll ask for a motion to accept the report. All those in favor? And then there is a recommendation respecting adopting these new things. Someone would make that motion. Councillor Brown.
Thanks. I recommend that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality adopt Administrative Policy 9, Tax Exemptions, as amended.
And that is seconded by Councillor Charlton. Any questions before I call for the question? Seeing none, all those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous. Speed reduction on Main Street School to Riverside segment, 7.2. There's a first motion respecting the report. Councillor Gidney.
I recommend that the Council of Region of Queens receive the report titled Speed Reduction on Main Street, School to Riverside segment for information.
And Councillor Jodry is reminding me that we've already accepted this report at our last meeting, so I'm not going to call for a seconder for that, as this motion has already been made at a previous meeting. So therefore, Councillor Gidney, the second motion.
I recommend that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality direct staff to conduct an assessment on municipal road segment of Main Street between School Street and Riverside Drive to determine the eligibility for speed reduction, and that this work be funded from the existing approved budget.
And that's seconded by Councillor Romero. And as I've just stated, we did receive this report at our last meeting, and we did vote to receive the report, which basically states that using approximately $1,000 from the existing budget, we will, staff will undertake to engage a speed specialist to conduct the assessment of the speed on Main Street road section from School to Riverside Drive. Are there any questions, any further questions? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous. Sealy Hall Municipal Heritage Designation, 7.3. There is a recommendation to receive the report. Councillor Brown.
Thanks. I recommend that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality receive the report titled Municipal Heritage Designation, Sealy Hall, for information.
Seconded by Councillor Hawks. And Director McLeod, would you just quickly review the report that we are receiving?
Yes, Mayor Norman, just a few brief comments. The Medway Area Heritage Society, who owns the property at 1640 Medway, or Port Medway Road in Port Medway, have made application to have the building that's situated on the property and is locally known as the Sealy Hall designated as a municipal registered heritage property. The property has played an important role in the community of Port Medway, originally being built as a general store, warehouse, and shipping office. It was built by the Sealy family, and there's, I guess, some debate as to the actual construction date of the building. Some think it's around 1840, others around 1860. So it has been a significant building in the community for many years. The Heritage Advisory Committee met on May the 2nd to discuss the application and felt that the architectural style of the building is typical of, or and a good example of construction of the era. However, it was felt that the more significant role was the role that that building has played in the community, and they felt that it was worthy of a municipal heritage designation.
Thank you, Director McLeod. Any questions to Director McLeod respecting the wish for the Heritage Society to have provincial designation on Saley Hall? Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I think Seeley Hall is a great addition to the community, and it's great to see some of these older buildings saved and put there like that. I guess my question is, one of the things about the Heritage is that they allow less parking, like a smaller parking footprint than normal for buildings that host events, or am I reading some of that incorrectly?
I guess under the land use bylaw, there is provision whereby a property that's designated either provincially or municipally can receive some incentives, and one being a reduction in the number of parking spaces required for a particular use. So that is incorporated under the land use bylaw. Yes.
Any other questions respecting the report? Councillor Brown?
I think that'll make it a lot easier for them to host events that they do. They do a lot of art events, a lot of gallery openings, Medway Lighthouse Society. So having more flexibility for them to do that is a great thing.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any further questions on the report? If not, I'll ask for the question on the report. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous? And there is a second motion respecting this property. Councillor Brown, whose district this is in.
I recommend that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality serve notice of recommendation upon the owners of property identified as PID number 700-91343 and located at 1640 Port Medway Road in Port Medway regarding the registration of the property known as Seeley Hall in the Municipal Registry of Heritage Property, and that a hearing be scheduled for June 11th, 2024 at 9 a.m. in the Council Chambers at the Municipal Administration Building, 249 White Point Road in Liverpool, to provide opportunity for the property owners to make comment on the proposed designation.
And that is seconded by Councillor Hawks. So now the motion has been made to move forward on a public hearing to allow municipal heritage designation. Is there anyone who wishes to speak for or against this motion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous. 7.4. I have to get these in order. Is the waiver to Operation Policy 58, Privateer Farmers Market. Comes with two recommendations. The first one dealing with accepting the report. Is there a mover? Councillor Gidney.
I recommend that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality receive the report titled Waiver to Operation Policy 58, Privateer Farmers Market for information.
And that is seconded by Councillor Brown. Director Lane, if you would give a quick review of the report, please.
Certainly. Good morning, all. So the Privateer Farmers Market has requested a waiver to Operational Policy 58, which is the consumption of alcohol on municipally owned properties. This is a regular request that allows the market to attract alcohol producers to sample and sell the wares at that market. So waiving the policy will allow them to attract those to the market. The market operates in Liverpool on Saturdays from May 18th until October 26th this year. As usual, the proponent is required to submit to the municipality proof of liability insurance with the Region of Queens named as an additionally insured, a valid liquor licence from the province, and knowledge that all laws regarding this must be strictly adhered to.
Thank you, Director Lane. Are there any questions respecting the report? Hearing none, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous? And the second motion dealing with this item, please. Councillor Gidney.
I recommend that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality waive Policy 58, consumption of alcohol on municipally owned property for the privateer farmers market at Centennial Park, Liverpool, on Saturdays from May 18th to October 26, 2024.
Seconded by Councillor Charlton. Any questions? Anyone wishes to speak for or nay against this? This is a regular occurring, and it's for sale, consumption, and sampling.
That's correct, yes.
Any questions? If not, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous. 7.5 Community Investment Fund 2024-2025. Development Officer Sorita. There are many motions as they all go individually. But there is the first motion respecting the report. Councillor Fancy, Deputy Mayor Fancy.
I so move that the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality receive the report titled Community Investment Fund 2024-2025 for information.
And that's seconded by Councillor Brown. Mr. Rita, it's a long report, but perhaps you'll just give us a synopsis on the capital and the date on those and the other three and how you determine some things, please.
I recognize that this is pretty robust with 18 requests under 3 different categories of the Community Investment Fund. There are operating requests followed by some capital improvements and some event requests, which are fairly time sensitive as well. All of the requests are in compliance with the Community Investment Fund guidelines, and they have been thoroughly vetted. You will see that not 100% of them are getting the full amount of their request, and in the event that there's a question on that, that's related to some variables when doing the calculations. It's not as cut and dry as, yes, they're meeting a few things and that's it. There's actually calculations involved surrounding bank balances and the projections, whether they're projecting a surplus or a deficit. There's different variables involved with those calculations. And I have deemed that these are the proposed amounts for funding that would be in adherence with the guidelines of the fund. So if anyone has any questions about those recommendations, I welcome them.
Are there any questions to Councillor Sarita respecting the report before we get into the individual motions? If not, Councillor Brown.
I think we can see by this report that we have a lot of requests coming in from different community groups, and this is really helping out a lot of groups that have trouble making ends meet. It also puts a lot of strain on staff to vet all these applications. So I appreciate having that done, and I'm sure the groups appreciate us having this fund for them. We were at the NSFM conference, and I talked to different municipalities. Most of them don't do things like this for their groups, so they seem to be really amazed that we could do this and how much it helps groups outside of the normal mainstream. So thank you.
Any other comments respecting the report? Not, I'll ask for a question on the report. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous. So there's a long list of recommendations. We'll start with the second one dealing with CJQC Radio Society. Councillor Gidney.
I recommend that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to CJQC Radio Society for eligible operating expenses in the amount of $5,000 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And that's seconded by Councillor Amaro. Any questions respecting their request for operating expenses? Hearing none, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous. Motion 3, Queens County Museum. Councillor Brown.
I move that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to Queens County Museum for eligible operating expenses in the amount up to $10,000 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And that is seconded by Councillor Hawks. Any questions respecting the Queens County Museum's eligibility for operating expenses? Hearing none, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Passed. Number 4, South Queens Chamber of Commerce. Councillor Gidney.
I move that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to South Queens Chamber of Commerce for eligible operating expenses in the amount of up to $5,000 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And that is seconded by Councillor Charlton. Any questions respecting the eligibility of South Queens Chamber of Commerce? Hearing none, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Passed. Item 5, Councillor Hawks.
I move that the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to Queens County Fair Association for the eligible operating expenses in the amount of up to $10,000 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Fancy. Any questions respecting Queens County Fair Association's eligibility? Seeing none, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Passed. Motion number 6, North Queens Heritage Society. Councillor Hawks.
I move that the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to the North Queens Heritage Society for eligible operating expenses into the amount of up to $1,125 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And this is seconded by Councillor Brown. And Ms. Sarita, if you could, because this is the first of the motions in which an organization will be receiving less than they applied for. The other preceding ones all received the monies because they're all eligible. Just a note, they had asked for $1,500, but if you quickly explain that their cash asset of 25%, because there's a few other motions coming forward. So would you just give a brief explanation about the fact if groups hold too much cash asset, either 25 or 50%, it influences their amounts?
Yes, so in this particular case, their cash bank account, their bank balance, as well as their cash investments are exceeding the threshold of 25%. So their bank balance is at 39%. And so anything that's between 25 and under 50%, it bumps up to 75% of the ask. So that's where the calculation is in place.
Any questions respecting this? Because this does come into play with some further ones as well. We all thoroughly understand how the policy works. That's good. I will ask for the question then. All those in favor of the amount? Unanimous. Question number 7, South Shore Transition House Association. Councillor Romero.
I move the Council of Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to South Shore Transition House Association for eligible operating expenses in the amount up to $1,250 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And this is seconded by Councillor Gidney. And just a note, this is another one. They had applied for $5,000, but they were 50% of assets. Councillor Charlton.
Thank you. I just have a question in regards to this request. It notes here that this was to continue supporting Queens County clients from a more secure satellite location in the Liverpool area. So it's my understanding that we do not have a location in the Liverpool area, or is there something they are using currently?
They currently have been in the Liverpool area servicing clients for almost 2 years and from a location that is just not secure. So they have requested outside of their other government funded projects that they can find a safe and secure space. This would cover their rent, transportation to and from for their clients who have experienced domestic violence, as well as materials, collateral, and so forth. So, but because of their bank balance being over the threshold, it does throw off the metrics on this one. So they had to, the funding gets scaled down by CIF policy guidelines.
Thank you. So I'm just wondering, and I guess question to our CAO in regards to options. So there are other things that we fund throughout the year. I don't recall making an exception in this policy, but I'd like to clarify that we could if we wish to. I'm just thinking, I sit on the South Shore Housing Committee, my role as a counselor for that committee, and there are many barriers for Queens County residents, and this is to provide a secure location for women who are experiencing domestic violence, and to try to get to Bridgewater is a huge barrier. So I'm just wondering if maybe it could be clarified what are options for exceptions to do this, because I would guess that if they don't have this support to do this, they will not get a secure location.
Yep, council could make a decision contrary to its policy.
If I could, I've met with social transition hosts in the past over some other matters, and they do off-site referral and visitation to Queens, North Queens area and South Queens area. And I'll just leave it at that. But they have been here for several years doing this, and they will continue to do so. And they do have funds to provide for the full amount if they so wish. So I just wanted to make that comment that they have been doing this for several years. And anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Anyone else wishes to comment? I will let Councillor Brown speak first.
This type of topic has come up before recently. 1 or 2 council meetings ago, I brought up a motion to go outside of our policy to help a funding group, and council overwhelmingly voted against making any exceptions to this policy. This is a very worthwhile cause, and I think we can look at some of those things, but we have to have some consistency on the way we deal with things. We can't decide that one area or one group is not as deserving as another area or group. I think that's a slippery slope that we go down.
Councillor Charlton.
Thank you. Just to clarify, maybe Ms. Sereda is better equipped to answer this about the secure location. Like, what is the difference that they're asking? What would these funds provide? Does this provide a place for women who are experiencing domestic violence to stay as opposed to going to Bridgewater? Are they staying in Queens? Just trying to get some clarity around this.
So this, excuse me, this would be for Queens County residents who are experiencing domestic violence to go and receive counseling and support. And they're brought in from all corners of Queens to the Liverpool area to this particular location. So it's now been a proven location and a viable need that there's a demand for it for sure. But it's specific to them being able to have on-site support. Right now, they're there on a weekly basis, but the space is just very public, and it's a very private matter. So they're just hoping to be able to continue to support throughout in the Liverpool location, in a better location for all of the necessary folks in Queens that need that kind of counseling.
And in order for your question, this is not providing overnight or accommodation. It's outreach, and often they redirect those seeking help to a various number of programs. Councillor Brown?
I think this is a really worthwhile cause, and something that council would probably be. I shouldn't speak for all of council, but I personally would be open to looking at it if it was brought back as a standalone request instead of looking for a change for an existing policy. We've done that in the past for Queens County Transit, for the childcare, for different organizations that have had funding requests. So I would definitely entertain a request like that from an organization. I just am leery of changing the policy when we've already decided that we don't want to make exceptions to policy.
Any further comments before I call for the question? Councillor Charlton?
Thanks, Councillor Brown, for that comment. That was sort of my question when I first asked what our other options were, because I recognize that there were people who probably wouldn't want to go against this policy, but we do support things like this through our operating budget. So in that case, I guess what would be the smoothest process if we were going to have a motion come back to support a $5,000 operating for South Shore transition housing? Are we going to table this and ask for something else? I'm not sure what the best approach is, so if we could have some clarity around that, I would appreciate that.
Yeah. So if you're wanting to still have them go through the CIF and the reporting and the requirements, then what I would suggest is that council override the limitation and simply approve, make a motion to approve whatever amount of dollars. If you don't want them to have to go through the CIF, or you want to give them more money not through the CIF, then that can be a separate motion, which you can either maybe give a notice of motion today for the next council meeting about that topic. You could do either. And I think this is what Councillor Muse and I were talking about the other day, which is sort of we need to maybe look at our grant policies across the board and try to create a little bit more clarity about, for example, when council might want to create exceptions, so it's better understood. Does that clarify your question, Councillor Charlton?
Yeah, I think so. We're back to green lights again. I want to see this request supported, considered to be supported in the full amount, because I think it's important that women in Queens County have access to a resource like this in Queens County, and they don't have to go elsewhere. So for Queens County Transit, for example, and those other things, they're not coming through the Community Investment Fund, but don't we require still financials yearly? None for those?
No. So again, to go back to what Councillor Muse and I were talking about is, and just to provide clarity, there are 3 ways in which municipalities, in which we give money, which is not unusual in the sense that it happens in many municipalities. There's some kind of funding program. So in this case, we're talking about CIF. There's councils just making motions or a practice of giving money, like the Greenfield Rec Society, right? So we give them money, but there's no reporting relationship. And then there's third, where there's an actual funding agreement, like fire departments. And that's why I think we need a bit of clarity, because I know during the discussion at council, there was a comment about wanting to make sure that people were going through the correct channels. And part of my comment to Councillor Muse is, I'm actually not sure as your CAO what is because any 3 of those are options for any organization. I'm not sure there is clarification on quote unquote what the proper channel is for all requests. And that's what I was telling him I think we could use some clarity on in the future. Don't have time to tackle it today, but anyway, sorry, I'm going off, but I hope that's clarifying a little bit.
So as chair, here's what I see as alternatives. Council could approve the motion of $1,250, which would keep it within the CIF policy. And then if a councillor so wished to bring back a motion at a future meeting of an amount, say $3,750, to be funded from an operating surplus or wherever, to make the 5,000, that would be fine. Personally, I would like to know that they require that in order to do what they're doing, and they're anyway. So you have that option, or you can simply defeat this motion, give them no money, and then bring back a motion at another meeting for 5,000. But this is the motion that's currently on the floor. To amend the motion from 1,250 to 5,000 is significant. So I would not rule that as an amendment.
May I? So in my mind, I think that to CAO Jodry's point, it would make more sense to go against the policy recommendation and give, if council so wished, to give the request of 5,000, because then this group would still have to submit the paperwork so we could see the value of it to look at it again in the future for a future year. I'm wondering what could be clarified for substantive, because we've done things in the past and changed motions that could be considered substantive, and I can't find in our rules of order anything that suggests a nominal amount of what would be substantive. So in my mind, I'm struggling with not being able to just amend this to the 5,000 and move it forward.
As chair, it's substantive when you are breaking the rules of a policy. And by changing the amount, you are waiving the rules and breaking the rules of the policy. And when one breaks the rules of a policy, in my books, that is a substantive amendment. Councillor Brown?
I think I'm in favor of voting on this motion as it stands and then having it brought back at a later date for a question on the other. That protects the integrity of the policy that we have, gives staff our support on following the rules and regulations, and allows them to a better handle on where the money goes. So there's a paper trail. But if we decide we want to give more to this organization, it's a very good organization. We have that option at a later time, and I think that's, in my mind, that's the best way to go today.
Any other comments, Deputy Mayor Fancy?
Yes, I think both ideas are good, but I kind of go along with what Councillor Brown is saying, because you have to have a policy used by and have a multiplication factor to be able to use that the monies will line up. And if we don't, then we have to change the monies, because then we're going over. And where do we do that? We've had motions or requests in the past where people have had more money in the bank, and that's the problem, because you're working with money in the bank, and sometimes that money in the bank can disappear. And all it takes is have a few different incidents or whatever, like say, for instance, the Queens County Food Bank will always have money. There'll always be money in the bank. And when you run out of money in Queens County Food Bank, it means you're down. So that doesn't, you've got to see how it applies. And for them, if they have money in there, there's going to be, we don't want to see one person fall through that crack. And as the former person on this housing committee for a number of years, I don't want to see one person go without, but I don't want them to feel like they're being rejected either. So I think that if we can be able to have, as what CAO Jody was saying before, how do we find that sweet spot for this? I think the sweet spot is we keep within our guidelines of our monies, but then be able to find ways that we can be able to give monies in other directions.
there any other comments? Before I recognize Councillor Brown, who's spoken several times, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Brown?
I think the only other thing I'd like to mention is that when we look in the report with the budget impacts, we've got applications this year up right around 150,000, and we put 175,000 in. So we're depleting the community investment fund. We've already set an amount aside for 250,000 for the walking track. So, you know, we started this year with a fairly healthy reserve in the community investment fund. We're using a lot of that, and if we take too much money out in the community investment fund, then we're going to affect other small organizations that may want to make application down the road for things that come up. So we're limiting a lot of other groups if we take too much money out of the community investment fund. So if we want to change the rules, give somebody else more money, we take it out of the surplus, then we're not depleting a pot of money that we set aside to help small community organizations to survive. And that's one of my strong points on that.
Are there any other comments before I call for the question? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous. And I believe, Councillor Charlton, you can tell from the sense around the table that this council does highly support South Shore Transition House and the outreach they provide for women in Queens, but this council wishes to keep in check with the policy that we've developed. So, motion number 7 deals with the Mersey Point Community Association. Councillor Charlton.
That the Council of the Region, I move that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to Mersey Point Community Association for eligible operating expenses in the amount up to $10,000 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And that is seconded by Councillor Gidney. Any questions respecting Mersey Point Community Association's eligibility? If not, I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. Friends of Carol Baker Society, motion number 9. Councillor Brown.
I move that the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to the Friends of Carol Baker Society for eligible operating expenses in the amount up to $4,847.50 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And this is seconded by Councillor Charlton. And this is another group that asked for more money. Actually, they asked for almost double. But again, because of the rules governing the Community Investment Fund, they are only eligible for the amount that was given in the motion. Are there any questions respecting this motion? If not, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous. West Queens, Coastal Queens Place. Motion number 10. Councillor Romero.
I move the Council of Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to the Coastal Queens Place for eligible operating expenses in the amount up to $5,000 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
Seconded by Councillor Gidney. Another organization that asked for double, they asked for 10,000. They are a very important community association for those in the West Queens area. But once again, their cash assets prevented them from having the full amount. Hence, staff have ruled on the 5,000. Any questions respecting this? If not, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous. Queens County Blades. Councillor Charlton.
I move that the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to Queens County Blades up to $5,000 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund in increments of $125 per new participant in the 2024, should that say 2025 or 2025 Can Skate Learn to Skate program, whom have not been previously subsidized and who are residents of Queens County.
And then seconded by Councillor Brown. And this is something that the region has been doing for several years, subsidizing new people in the CANSCAPE program encourages participation. Is there any questions respecting this motion? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous? Number 12, Mercy Tobiatic Research Institute. Councillor Hawkes.
I move that the Council of Regional Queens Municipality provide grant funding to the Mersey Tobiatic Research Institute for eligible operating expenses in the amount of up to $5,900 from the 2024 Community Investment Fund.
And that is seconded by Deputy Mayor Fancy. Any questions respecting their eligibility? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous. Friends of Hank Snow Society, number 13. Deputy Mayor Fancy.
I also move that the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to the Friends of Hank Snow Society for eligible operating expenses in the amount up to $10,000 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And that's seconded by Councillor Hawkes. Any questions respecting the Friends of Hank Snow Society's eligibility? Hearing none, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. And North Queens Board of Trade, Councillor Hawkes.
I move that the Council of Regional Queens Municipality provide grant funding to North Queens Board of Trade for the eligible operating expenses in the amount up to $10,000 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Fancy. Any questions respecting the North Queens Board of Trade's request? Seeing none, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Passed. And that takes us to the end of the operating grants, which which application had to be in at the end of January. We'll now move into the capital grants community investment fund, and this grant line is open throughout the year as long as there's money in the account. So question number 15, Councillor Gidney.
I move that the Council of Regional Queens Municipality provide grant funding to Seaside Recreation and Community Center Association for eligible capital upgrade costs and in-kind contributions in the amount up to $33,723.64 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And that's seconded by Councillor Amaro. And just to be noted that Seaside Recreation Community Center, they did ask for $46,631.52. However, because of their cash assets, their amount is what was stated in the motion. Are there any questions respecting this? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous? Liverpool Baseball Club, Councillor Brown.
I recommend that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to Liverpool Baseball Club for eligible capital upgrade costs in the amount up to $1,025 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And that's seconded by Councillor Charlton. And again, they had asked for $3,400, but due to their cash assets, which they have, they're deemed to have the amount that's in the motion. Any questions respecting this? Not, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous. Motion number 17. Councillor Romero.
I move the Council of Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to Westfield Community Center Society for eligible capital upgrade costs and in-kind contributions in the amount up to $23,197.50 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And that's seconded by Councillor Hawks. And just a note that they had requested 28,000, but they had included HST in their requests. And when organizations provide their expenses, HST is not considered an eligible expense. Hence the 23,197.50. Any questions respecting this motion? If not, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Passed. Native Council number 18. These are for events. Those were the rest of the capital. Though a reminder to anyone watching that the capital grant program remains open for the remainder of the year, as does the festival event expenditures. So, Native Council, Councillor Brown.
I recommend that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to Native Council of Nova Scotia for eligible event expenses in the amount up to $2,300 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And that's seconded by Deputy Mayor Fancy. And this is their June 21st event that they have held for many years. Any questions respecting this amount? If not, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Contrary? Unanimous. And the last event funding, Privateer Days Commission, Councillor Gidney.
I move that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality provide grant funding to Privateer Days Commission for eligible event expenses in the amount up to $3,400 from the 2024-2025 Community Investment Fund.
And that's seconded by Councillor Romero. And this is the full request that they requested was $3,400. Any questions respecting this? If not, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. And that is the looked after 7.5. So now we move into 8.1, Crosswalk Safety Society engagement. This was a motion tabled. So first order of business is to on-table the motion. And the motion that was tabled, just for your reference, at our last meeting was tabled that the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality fund a pedestrian flag program for the Main and Market intersection from the accumulated surplus. So we need a motion to on-table that motion. Councillor Charlton has moved that we on-table the motion, and it's seconded by Councillor Amero. And I'll have a vote on the on-tabling of the motion. All those in favor of on-tabling the motion? Passed. So now the motion is back on the floor. So who would like to begin? Councillor Gidney.
I move that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality receive...
Motion is already on the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're now discussing we've on-tabled the motion, so the motion is now live again. So the motion we are discussing is that we fund a pedestrian flag program for the Main and Market intersection from the accumulated surplus. That is open now for discussion.
Thank you. I apologize for that. I move that the Council of Region of Queens Municipality...
We've already, Councillor Gidney.
Okay.
The motion's been made. Now if you want to comment on the motion. Great.
Thank you.
And I know you wish to comment
I've
on
had
it, so go
I've had
ahead.
a rough morning here.
Go ahead.
Yes, I have a few comments. There's a lot of things happening here with this. The flags, I'm not sure if that would be a help or a hindrance. And from everything that I've read and researched on this, there's no benefits in the whole scheme of things. The risk factor is still going to be there if there's flags or no flags. The biggest thing is that the people driving and walking have to respect each other, and they have to watch out for each other. And that's a big, I find that's the big thing. So that's my take on this. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Brown.
Yeah, as Councillor Gidney said, the evidence doesn't point to this improving safety at crosswalks. I think if we put them there and some people use them, some don't, you're habituating drivers to look for the flag, and it puts people who don't want to use the flag at higher risk. I think we could probably do a lot better job of protecting safety at that intersection by asking the RCMP to patrol it on a regular basis and do some enforcement. I think if a few fines or warnings were given out, word would get around that you have to pay attention when you're driving, which we shouldn't have to tell people, but we seem to have to do it. I'm as guilty as anybody else of rolling through an intersection occasionally if it looks like it's clear, but I think if the RCMP were able to step up enforcement, I think we'd do a better job than putting flags on the sidewalk, which could leave us open to more liability down the road.
Are there any other comments? Councillor Charlton?
Thank you. When we last talked about this at our recent council meeting before this, ever since Mayor Norman made a comment about a child being halfway across the crosswalk and turning to go back for a flag, that really has bothered me. And as a mom of a 7-year-old who would absolutely turn around to go get a flag if she forgot, I don't think that would do necessarily what we would hope as a child who turned around. A driver could think that they're out of the crosswalk, but they're coming right back in. I did have a question in regard to, it's not specific to the flags, but in what would be the requirements for, what I guess it would be traffic to, I had mentioned this to our CAO about traffic lights. I realized that they were there a long time ago, but I'm just thinking, when we talked about all the different options for this area, it didn't make sense about the crosswalk beacons because our director of public works explained how that would affect. So I really only see like a future use for that area with lights, recognizing that it wasn't suggested we go forward with another study of that intersection because the data really hadn't changed. I do expect that data to change with our new long-term care facility, developments on Bristol, developments in Mount Pleasant. So I'm just wondering, are there any comments that could be made potentially about what would be required to consider something like that?
I'm just suggesting maybe as a path forward, we could put together a report that would outline sort of what the guidelines would dictate when traffic lights would be warranted. Through the Transportation Association of Canada's guidelines, like maybe we could put a report together to outline sort of what conditions would have to be true in order for that to be the sort of recommended course of action. Would that be helpful? Okay.
Any other questions on the pedestrian flag program? Councillor Romero?
When this started, I was in favor of the flags as well, but with careful consideration, I can see problems with it as well, and I think they're going to hinder it more than help it. But I do think we need to do a lot more in that area. And I noticed in Berwick they have, it almost looks like solar crosswalk lights, and they've got like long, probably 3 or 4 feet going down the pole, and they're flashing. I think we need something like that, or we need to install traffic lights again. It's one person getting hit there is too many, and it's been many over the years. So I think we really need to look into this and go forward with this and not stall so much on this problem. I know it's been years and years that it's been talks about it, but I think we need to find a way forward. And I think we need to do a much better job visually of this area. I think we need more signage. I think they need to be, even the crosswalks need to be displayed a little better, just to protect our pedestrians. Thank you.
Yeah, on certain what you mean about displayed, but I mean, I do know you had mentioned there's no big yellow crosswalk sign there, but that's because it's a stop. They're placed on when there's straight roads. But I do understand the discussion respecting perhaps the need for streetlights, which would require a study in things. And I also was made very aware of why things happen. Just a quick side note: parked at the stop sign at the three-way stop, and suddenly someone on a bicycle comes up on my passenger side and cuts across on the sidewalk, and it was close. So that was totally illegal for what they did. But it's a mixture, and I think it's an example of things that happen there. But we do need to somehow find a way to make people more aware, and I believe CEO Joji was correct when he mentioned that. Just some suggestions on what can be done as they move forward. Any other comments on this motion? Deputy Mayor Fancy?
I got a few different things about it. First off, may I say that I hear all the comments and everything that are here was said today, but I still am fully in favor of the flags. A lot of things we're talking about here is, yes, we have to be a little more careful. Yes, people do come to rolling stops. Yes, we don't take into age demographics. And a lot of times what happens with accidents is age demographic related. And that's that I can say, because I'm getting to that age where I don't multitask so well. And coming to the three-way stop, trying to figure out who is supposed to be going next. Is it my turn? Is it their turn? Looking at people crossing and trying to figure out all these things, and then trying to remember, well, after I looked at the cars, to look back at the people. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. You can take in the grocery stores, or somebody who I can see it's age demographics. People stop in the middle of the aisle with the cart and say, "Well, I can tell they're older because their mind is on what they're doing and not what's all going on around them." And we do have, and that's definitely a part of the problem. So the enforcement and rolling stops and such is not going to cure the aging process. And I think if we don't address that, we're looking at this wrongly. One thing about the flags, not saying they're the end-all be-all, but a flag does a couple different things. And I think it was mentioned in here, it's visibility. It shows forth when somebody grabs a flag, you got something orange in front of you. At least it catches your eye. And especially if you can move it. And I said this the last council meeting, that when you come up to where there's road construction going on, and there's a fellow holding a stop sign, if you just stand there holding a stop sign, you may miss him. But he always moves it back and forth, just to say, well, can you see me? Make sure you know there's a stop sign there. And going along with that flag, moving that back and forth, it's, hey, I'm here. It does the visibility, and what you also addressed in here, calling the time lapse. It's that stopping to pausing. If you can get the people to stop, to pause, especially people walking, before they step out, they have to grab that flag. They have to pause. Instead of this, as you said with the bicycle, they come out and they whip right out. Or somebody just walking along, two people talking, and they walk across the crosswalk and not look at the drivers or anything. It's that time to pause. When you get people to pause, you're going to make them think before what they're doing. So the flags, is that the end-all be-all? I think it's definitely a help. I think it can, at least it'll, and I would be concerned about somebody going up there and coming back and getting a flag. I mean, there's always going to be issues with each thing, but I believe the good outweighs the bad with this, especially if we what we're aimed for right now is doing nothing, and I don't think doing nothing is the answer. I think because if we're going to put lights in, it's going to cost way too much money for us at this particular time. The beacons timer, I've talked to different people who have those, and I don't know why we're talking so much about how much time they flash and how they can be adjusted. Those beacon lights can work. It's a matter if that's what we want, or if we want to look further into it, because all we have to do is go with the supplier and look at it. But that's a discussion for another time. Right now, we're talking about the flags, and I believe that it would be a wrong thing to just look the other way on them.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Fancy. Are there any other questions? Councillor Charlton?
Just some clarification regarding CAO Jodry's comment about a report. Is that something that we would need to put as a discussion item on the next meeting before we went forward, before council considered asking for such a report?
I believe when this motion is dealt with, if someone because it is discussion, if someone wanted to make a motion that staff prepare a report of things such as the beacon lights or whatever for a future meeting, I'm certain if it would happen within the next 2 weeks. But if there is discussion about if you would wish to see a report about beacon lights, I do agree with Deputy Mayor Fancy in the sense they can be set for timers. I know in some large cities, some of them have like 30 seconds, some of them have 20 seconds, some of them have 45 seconds. So they can all be set differently. And some of the ones with the short ones, not only do they have beacon lights, but they come across once you push it, you see across the road how many seconds there actually is to get across, or you can set them short. So that can be made, but first we have a motion on the floor to deal with. Any other questions respecting this motion? Not, I'm going to ask for the question. All those in favor of funding the flag program signify by raising your hand. Opposed? So that's unanimous opposed. So there's no one voted in favor of funding it. Now, the last item is the off-site council meeting. Yes, right.
Thank you. It was just suggested about that report. So I would like to put a motion forward that staff come back with more specifics on options such as the traffic lights. So I think that's why we're all struggling here, because and that's what the struggle was at the meeting before, is that there weren't really clear options. It referenced the beacons to Deputy Mayor Fancy's point and yours, Mayor Norman, but that report talked about how this intersection is unique because it's stop controlled, and I believe that's why Director Grant didn't recommend the beacons. And so when I look around at other communities that have these, three-way intersections, they have lights. And so I think it's important that we understand what the criteria is for those lights. If another option has presented itself that we could consider, then I think that would be helpful to have. But I think we need something like that tells us how we could get those traffic lights, what the criteria is. So if we're not there yet, when can we pull the trigger on them? So I just would like to have that report, please.
Councillor Charlton has moved that staff be directed to come back with a series of alternatives for pedestrian safety, shall we call that? Including streetlights, beacons, etc. at a future meeting. Councillor Charlton, did I reiterate your words correctly?
I guess the info for me is more so about the traffic lights. It was my understanding that the beacons weren't recommended because it was a stop controlled. I'm just saying if there are other suggestions, I'm not sure what the CAO and Director Grant have in mind, but for me, the question that I had previously asked was what is the criteria for the traffic lights? Because in my mind, that seems like the only option that would be useful, recognizing that we might not have the data that suggests we need to go that route, but can we? So I would like clarity on the traffic lights itself.
Okay. So a motion to come back for staff to report back on what it would require for traffic lights at that intersection. Is there a seconder for that? Is there a seconder? Councillor Brown. And that date will be determined. Any questions respecting that? Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I think I'd be interested in seeing what our traffic authority thinks would trigger the need for traffic lights, because I still feel that we need, that enforcement will handle a lot of that, and education. I know in Halifax a number of years ago, they had an initiative where they sent people out to some of the busier sidewalks, and they handed out hats to people who were looking at what they were doing. It was called a Heads Up program. And it really brought a lot of awareness to people in the intersections who were just looking at their phones and walking out in traffic because the light changed, not looking for cars. I mean, lights won't stop cars. The lines on the pavement won't stop cars. You have to look for yourself and guard your safety. So I think enforcement, but you know, we've got a lot of development coming, and I'd like to know what would trigger a need for streetlights at that intersection, because I think the stop controlled works well now if we enforce it.
So it's been moved and seconded that staff investigate the requirements for streetlights. They were there before, they worked. It was unfortunate that they were taken down by a large, high vehicle or an accident. But they were there, they did work. And so it would be interesting to know the cost. And as Councillor Charlton did note, we're becoming busier. There's going to be construction. There seems to be more people with more vehicles. So I'm going to call for the question. Councillor Deputy Mayor Fancy.
Okay, this recommendation is only going to be looking at streetlights. We're not looking at the beacons anymore, or is that because I'm also looking at two different things. If it cost us $150,000, $200,000 for streetlights, and we were forever getting them in, I like to see the report to be able to see if still. So we're disregarding the beacons with this, and this report is only for streetlights.
It's specifically streetlights. This is referencing streetlights.
Just to clarify, the beacons were included in our last report. It was suggested that they weren't a staff recommendation because it was a stop controlled area. So that's the only way that I see forward is by doing the traffic lights, because then you'd have a light that said you could walk or not. If the beacons don't make sense, then this is our only option.
Any other questions on the motion before I ask for the question? All those in favor? Opposed? One against. At our former meeting, we're going to 8.2, June 24th, offsite council meeting. One of our meetings, get my papers back in order. 8.2, right here. So we did not hold our April 8th meeting at West Queens because it was the meeting at which we were doing we thought we were going to be doing the budget. And because of the fact that we now have these devices, and I happened to look this morning, and viewership is certainly picking up on people who are viewing the minutes here, on certain what live numbers are, but I know from the YouTube counts that there are many people. I believe there was 98 for one set of recorded, that people are using this. When we go to off-site, and we had discussed this at budget meeting, when we go to off-site, we do not have sufficient video, audio quality to do recordings. And people might say, well, you never had them before. People can rely on the paper minutes or the print minutes. So I guess the question is, and there is a report here that we will discuss shortly, it deals with all of these matters. So there is a recommendation receiving the report, and then we'll discuss this report. So there's our recommendation number 1. Councillor Charlton.
I move that Council of the Region of Queens Municipality receives a report titled June 2024 Offsite Council Meeting for information.
And that's seconded by Councillor Amaro. So basically, for our viewing audience, within our policy respecting council meetings, which we must have, is the quote, a bi-monthly evening council meeting on the 4th Tuesday of each month in council chamber of the municipal council meeting beginning at 6 p.m., except for meetings which are held in the following locations. The April evening meeting is supposed to be held in West Queens. The June evening council meeting should be held in North Queens. October would see a evening meeting in East Queens outside of the chamber, and the January meeting would be in South Queens outside of the chamber. So if council is of the opinion, and this is why we're here for this discussion, that it no longer wishes to hold these off-site council meetings, then we'll need to change this policy. So I'm going to open the floor for discussion to determine council's opinions on off-site meetings, which takes me back to my first comment. During budget, there was discussion about if the costing of other equipment to go off-site. But currently, as it is, this is how our policy reads. So I'm opening the floor for discussion. Councillor Charlton.
Thank you. I do think it's important to go out into the communities, but I would like to see it done in a more meaningful way that was more informal, where you could expect more people to come out and meet members of council and have conversations. What I've noticed with these meetings is that the attendance is not often the greatest, and sometimes people in the audience have a hard time hearing. And so I don't believe that going out and doing these council meetings in these areas serves the purpose that maybe it was first intended for. I think we had talked before about like an engagement plan and how to engage better with residents and things like that. If memory serves me correct, I thought Councillor Hawks had said June was actually a bad time to go to North Queens. It's typically the evening meeting because it's graduation, prom at the end of June. There's all these things going on. And if that you were going to go out there, that was not the ideal time. So I don't know what room we have left to be able to do like different things with engagement, recognizing that this term ends in October. My thought is that these meetings need to be accessible for people to watch and listen, and going out in these different halls don't make them accessible in that way. I also don't think it's really fair for us to repeal this policy with the new council coming in October who might have a different view. So it's my understanding that we could just choose to have our meetings in this council chamber, and then maybe perhaps this is discussion in the fall for the next council to see where they want to go, because they'll have 4 years, to plan for. And just looking at this, the fact that there's a meeting in October just seems bizarre to me, because you have for this year, council coming out and a new one coming in, and if your new council is going out, it's just in the community at that first meeting, it seems like it might be overwhelming as well. So my view would be to hold them here, and this should be a topic in the fall. Thank you.
So if I understand, Councillor Charlton, you're not suggesting any changes to the policy. You're not suggesting deletion of the except for meetings, because I would see that as an easy thing to do, and then the future council could decide with it. We wouldn't have to repeal the entire policy. We could simply remove the phrase except for meetings which shall be held in the following locations, and list those 4 locations. And that way everything else in the policy stays as is, respecting their council meetings and things. So we could remove that except for meetings, and then should the incoming council wish to hold these meetings again, they could simply add them back into the policy, or they could change the policy, but we certainly can't repeal our entire policy, because then we have no policy around what time we have council meetings and what days we have them. Or we could, or the other alternative would be for council to make a recommendation going forward to our next meeting that, contrary to the policy, the June and October meetings will be held in the chamber. So there's your two alternatives. Three. You can either leave it as it is and we go off-site, or we make a recommendation that we will remove the phrase that I mentioned except for the meetings, which means there's no off-site, or we make a recommendation that at our next meeting that, contrary to policy 23, the June, October meetings will be held in the council chambers. So there's three alternatives, and I will leave it up to council for you to discuss and determine where you want to end this. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I'm in favor of leaving the policy the way it is and having us go out and have our off-site meetings. I know it's not ideal from an audio-visual standpoint, but I think it's very important to have councillors out in other communities. You know, we have social events, we have things going on. Most councillors don't show up for those. I mean, it's not a requirement that they have to go for something, whereas a council meeting really is. Most people that live in areas outside of Liverpool only ever see their own councillor in their community. And this is a chance for them to see everybody. We are a regional municipality. I think we should represent the whole region by getting out in the community. And I think contrary to Councillor Charlton's statements, when we've gone to a lot of these places, we've had bigger crowds there than we do in our building today. It's, you know, the problem we have is the audio visual, but I still think it's important for us to put a presence in all of our communities, to have people have a chance to interact with us in person before and after the meeting. They can talk, they can ask questions, they can put a face to us, they can, you know, it humanizes us to be put in those communities. And I think that's important in this day and age, because I think just going with TV and camera, people see us as somebody on a screen, not as a real person. And that's a bad way to go, in my opinion.
Councillor Brown has made his comments clear, and there was one off-site meeting where there was a significant amount of people on one issue. And our fluctuation in here comes and goes. We can have 20 people, or we could have one person in two media. It fluctuates, so I don't think Councillor Charlton was incorrect in her statement, because you just can't tell. It's so. I just wanted to make that clear that that attendance at our meetings varies on the subject matter, but you did make a good point about the fact that every councillor goes to a council meeting, and it does give people there who wish to see people. But Councillor Charlton's comments respecting the capacity, perhaps we need to take mics, or I'm not certain, or group smaller, or we all have voices which we can all use louder at meetings as well. But so Councillor Brown has made his point. Who else?
I'd just like to clarify that I wasn't saying that Councillor Charlton was wrong. I viewed it differently, because when we were in Port Medway, we had a large crowd. When we were in Westville, we had a large crowd. When we were in Greenfield, we had a fairly large crowd. So in Port Mattoon, we had a fairly large crowd. So we have had larger groups in some of those places. Other places, we've been there alone. So it does fluctuate.
Other Councillor Gidney.
Hi, thank you. I would like to make a recommendation that we not hold meetings outside of the office in June and October. And then that way the policy stays the same, nothing changes there. And or we can just make a motion or make a recommendation for a motion just to cancel our June outside motion, or a June outside meeting in North Queens.
So,
way-
Counselor, Gidney, which one is it? So you wish to waive policy 23 and hold the June, and you're making a recommendation for this to go forward at the next meeting, because this is a
Right,
discussion
not
point
to,
and
not
it's a
to meet
major one.
outside, meet here at the region.
Just for the June meeting?
For June, yes, and then we can decide that again in October or in September, what we're going to do for October.
So Councillor Gidney has made a motion that recommend at our following council meeting that we waive policy 23 respecting the June meeting, and the June meeting be held in the council chambers. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Romero. So now there is discussion on the motion that the June meeting not be held off-site. Councillor Romero.
I think it's important that the meetings are here on site now that we have all this equipment and people can actually hear the meetings. I do think it's important though that we get out in these months that's listed, and I think it's important to put it in the policy that we get out as a council. And Councillor Brown's correct. We do just get to see mostly our constituents and not all of Queens. So it's nice to get out, but I think we need to have like a more relaxed atmosphere and make it a council out and about, like April, June, October, and January. And I think it's really important in October to be out because it gives the constituents a chance to meet council, the new council that's coming on board. But I think it's important to have the meetings here. And I agree with Councillor Gidney. Thank you.
Other questions on the motion to recommend at our next meeting that the June meeting be held in the council chambers? Deputy Mayor Fancy?
I guess that goes along with what I'm trying to say, but anyway, I believe that the council meeting should be here, just because of the clarity, because even if you go to different areas, there's going to be other people who will still be listening for this, and it won't be just from one part of Queens where this where this meeting is taking place. So they're gonna be the losers always at the time when we go to do these things. And a lot of people listen to every single council meeting, and I think we're gonna have losers into that. But with that being said, is what everybody has said here along with it, I think there needs to be engagement meetings out in the communities, and maybe to be able to bring up topics we're going to be able to talk about. Now, does that mean that every councillor is going to go and everybody's going to be there? It's really up to your own conscience about being there. I will be there if I can make it. So I think to take them out would have been, but when that's not the motion on the floor, but to have engagement meetings outside in each area. Because even if we say in June we're not going to have one in North Queens, well, then North Queens could say, well, I see they decided not to do it for us. And I don't want anything to come across as that we don't care about the whole Queens, because we all care about the whole Queens. I think we should be bringing in engagement meetings.
Yeah, let's discussion of the motion as it is respecting June. Engagement meetings would not fall under regular meetings at council, because it's our council meetings it's referring to, but that's a different point. So, and other comments respecting waiving the June meeting, holding the June meeting in council chambers versus North Queens. Before I recognize Councillor Brown, does anyone else wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Brown?
As one of the councillors that represents part of North Queens, I think it's important that we have people out there. I know Councillor Hawks has said that June is not a good time because of school graduations, but there's other areas. There's Buckfield, there's Greenfield, there's LaBelle. There's different areas that don't have schools, that don't have those problems, that have an aging community, that have trouble getting out and getting around, may not be technologically savvy to get online. I still think it's important that we get out there. And, you know, and to go in deeper, if we cancel the June and October meetings, which I know is not part of this particular motion, but those are the two areas that pretty much encompass my whole district. So it's hard for me not to personally feel that my district is not going to have a meeting by council in it. So it's, you know, I can't go for this.
Are there any other comments? Deputy Mayor Fancy, if you take the floor. The chair.
Yes.
Personally, while I understand the limitations of traveling off-site and the fact that we live in a technological society, I believe it is important to travel off-site. Yes, the viewing quality may be low, but I believe we all have voices that we can use loud. We can encourage people to sit up front. Often at these meetings, people sit in the back, so we cluster people to the front. And you're correct, you can have, you know, we could do a volunteer day or meet your council day, and some councillors could choose not to go, or people could choose not to go. But I am going to stay with this as it is, and hopefully there are other people who will see the value in council traveling off-site around our region of Queens. There are people who do not watch video, there's still people that read the paper minutes or read the minutes online. So I am not going to be voting in support of not hosting the June meeting off-site.
Councillor Charlton.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I feel like we're going down a road where the few of us who've spoke about keeping them here, maybe it's being suggested that we don't value going out, and I just want to clarify that that's certainly not the case for myself, and I don't believe that to be the other councillors whatsoever. Just thought there might be a better approach. All I would ask, I guess, is that if the majority of people around the table would like to go out in that area, maybe it's not at the North Queens Fire Hall, as Councillor Hawk said, maybe that's not the best time. Could we have a mic, and could we look at changing the setup? Because it is very, very hard to hear. The last time we were at Milton Hall, the councillors around the table couldn't hear each other, let alone the people in the gallery. And it's pretty problematic for the people around the table making decisions if they can't hear other people around the table. So I have no problem if that's what the majority want to go. They want to keep those in those areas, recognizing Councillor Brown's points. I have no problem going out. I just didn't believe that this was the best approach given the lack of equipment that we have. But I guess my request is do we have access to something? I know some of these halls do have like PA systems and things like that. Could that just be put in place? I feel like we could just ultimately come to a decision around the table that if the sound was fine, then we could go forward and leave it as is. And I don't know what October looks like, but do that, and then this policy can become a discussion of the council of the next 4 years.
I believe we do not have.
Mayor Norman.
Just to see Jodri, I do not believe we have the capacity for all mics. That's something we'd have to ask our IT person if we would have, even if we had 3 mics hooked into one speaker for council to move. But I do not believe that the Region Queens personally owns a system which would allow every councillor to be mic'd, or every 2 or 3 to share a mic, but CAO Jodri maybe.
CAO Jodri, do you have anything to add?
Yes, we do not have the technical capabilities to do a good job of capturing sound and or video at offsite council meetings with our current equipment.
Councillor Charlton?
Are there specific halls that we could target that do have a PA system of like just even if it was a mic that was aimed at like our table, for example? I'm just throwing it out there because I don't know where this is going to go, and I don't like there obviously there is value in going out in the community, whether it's a council meeting or not. That's up for discussion.
Any other comments?
If I may, so the PA system per se isn't actually the issue. The issue is capturing the sound quality for the recording. So people maybe in the room could hear it, but it still wouldn't do a good job of recording the sound, and that's really the issue. Yeah.
Any other comments? Councillor Miro?
And that's why I think it's important to have the meetings here. But I agree with Councillor Gidney's recommendation at the moment for this next council meeting. But I do believe we have to discuss the October one, because I do think it's important to go out in the community, and maybe we can put it in our policy that we have to go out in the community the 4 times a year. So maybe we can adjust that policy, look into that. Thank you.
If I may, also, there is no evening meeting in October. There's no council evening meeting because that would be the 4th Tuesday. This year. So already we have some adjustments to make anyway.
Okay, going back to the original motion, which I didn't write down, of course, because I wasn't planning to. That is that we would have, okay, Councillor Charlton.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make you finish fast there. So I'm just wondering, to CAO Jodry's point, there won't be a council meeting on October 22nd because the election is October 19th, and so the new council won't be sworn in, and the current council can't make decisions. Correct? Okay. So I understand that. So I guess to Councillor Gidney's point, the only thing we can really discuss is removing the June one, based off of that. But I would just say, like, are there other opportunities? Councillor Hawks would be best equipped to answer this, of events that are going on in North Queens or Councillor Brown's area district as well, where council has maybe it's a formal invitation. I know there's been some comments before about if councils aren't formally invited, then that becomes problematic. But if there's a formal invitation for something where we could have an opportunity to go out as a group, because I don't think anybody around this table doesn't value that. So I think to that point, we look for that opportunity, and I would support Councillor Gidney's motion.
Okay, is there any further comments?
I have
Deputy Mayor Norman?
There is a 4th Tuesday in October, and I have a question why staff sideline. There is a 4th Tuesday in October, and I would have thought that would have been that would have been a council meeting at which the swearing in would happen, and it would be a council meeting because swearing in happens at a council meeting. This council prepares is how I would see that happening.
So I just want to clarify. One moment. Yeah. So currently, under your schedule, there is no meeting on the 22nd scheduled. It would be a special council meeting we would hold once the election is over. And then that new council can determine its schedule after that. So it's just not planned at this point. Well, that's something to do, but I just want to clarify. So up to now, you do not have in your current schedule that meeting planned. That doesn't mean there's not going to be a swearing in of council and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, that would happen.
Any other comments at this time? We have to remember, though, too, the motion on the floor is for the June, and it isn't even including the October. So we're voting on whether we're going to have that June meeting or not, and where it's going to be here or it's going to be in North Queens. So does someone want to read that motion again so everybody knows? Councilor Gidney?
I recommend that we waive policy 23 for a June meeting and it be held at the council chambers.
If I could, you recommend for the next council meeting?
I recommend at the next council meeting, we have a motion, make a motion to recommend that we waive policy 23 and have our June meeting held in the council chambers.
So I guess that still goes to the same process of seconding and voting on. So do I have a seconder? That's already done. Okay. So I guess we have to say, have a nod of heads that everybody wants it, or is it, what do we do? Or vote? Okay. All in favor? Contrary minded? Defeated.
And we are now down to in camera, so I'm going to ask for a motion to move in camera. Moved by Councillor Gidney, seconded by Councillor Brown. All those in favor? And we'll take a 10-minute recess.